we have to talk about a certain College Hill alumni, okay, alumna that is considered a College Hill alumna because Kai, I read an article on Inside Higher Education, great platform. Of course, we read it to learn about what's going on in the education world. And they talk about HBCU sometimes, and they were talking about Donald Trump, and they were talking about his outreach to HBCUs and what he did, quote unquote, for HBCUs when he was in office. Tell me why in that article the writer said, "Oh well, Amber Rose is up on the stage and she went to Alabama State, an alumni of College Hill Celebrity Edition." I swear to God, I swear to God.
Let's bring back journalistic integrity. Let's bring back journalistic research because
they done made the link. They done made the link between Amber. Listen, they done made the link between Amber Rose and College Hill to connote some level of support for Donald Trump and possible connection between HBCUs, which is wild. So essentially, Amber Rose spoke at the Republican National Convention. She endorsed Donald Trump and said she was MAGA in May, and that caused a lot of stir on social media. And she officially sort of had her like coming out as a MAGA person, a MAGA at the Republican National Convention. And a lot of folks ever since May have been talking about the altercation with Joseline Hernandez and sort of the conversation about identity that College Hill season 2 tackled with Amber Rose. And of course, you had Parker McKenna and you had Joseline Hernandez. They sort of had those moments in the show. And in season 2, episode 6, we know that the fight happened. So, Kaya, you now know what occurred. So you know that the fight ain't seen. Okay, the fight was in the trailer. Yeah. The fight wasn't on the episode. Yeah. So I want to toss to you first. What do you think about what you saw? Because you finally saw the fight episode, but also Amber Rose and her situation at the Republican National Convention.
Let me prepare my soapbox. So, like you said, I finally was able to see the episode and just seeing. Okay, so I will say that the way Joseline came out was very harsh. It's kind of like one of those situations where it's like right message but wrong messenger, if that makes sense. And something my mom always tells me, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So as far as Amber Rose and Joseline, first of all, Amber should never put her hands on Joseline regardless, because they say sticks and stones, right? But and I feel like Joseline shouldn't have like picked on Amber in the sense of like kept on egging her on. She should have said what she said, then just like let it go. But she just kept on going with it. But in a way, she's not completely wrong. How she may have said it was wrong, but she's not all the way wrong. And I'm gonna tell you why. Well, first and foremost, I'm not mixed race. I'm not biracial or nothing like that. So I honestly can't. I can only give my interpretation, or I can only give my insight because I do have friends who are mixed race. But me as a person, I'm not mixed race. I have 2 Black parents. But I feel like what we have to realize is for most mixed people who are mixed with Black and like another ethnicity, whether it's white, Hispanic, whatever, is that in a general case, you are seen as a Black person. No one's going to say, hey, well, this person's racially ambiguous, but 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh, they're probably Black. So I feel like Joseline wasn't wrong in that sense, and then I feel like Amber wasn't wrong since she is a biracial person, that Joseline can't tell her how to identify, because you can't. Only the person who lives that life can say, this is how I identify. But it's just really, it was shocking as far as Amber and like the whole Trump thing. It's very shocking and also disheartening because at one point I really did like Amber Rose, like her whole slut walk movie, really liked her at one point. But my issue is that we all know Amber Rose because of her proximity to Blackness and Black culture. Because people know her from being in music videos of Black entertainers. We know that she's dated other Black entertainers. So she's so like engulfed in the Black space. So even if you say, "Hey, I'm not fully black, I'm mixed race because like my father's white," that's fine because you don't want to disrespect your dad. That's completely understandable. But for her to support someone who's like who just like blatantly just shows that he does not have the best interest of black people at heart, is just really, it's telling. It's very telling because it's just like, yes, you are a mixed person, but you always say, yeah, I'm black and I'm white, which is fine. No one's gonna sit here and judge you for that because that's who you are. But for you to show your support for someone who, like I said, blatantly disrespects black people on a regular basis, it's kind of like very, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth personally. And then for you to go through this college hill experience and learning about black history and like what we as a people have to go through, and you still support this man, it's just kind of crazy to me.
I want to go back to the fight because one of our most popular videos on HBCU Post YouTube is my reaction to the fight. And I want to say first and foremost, really quickly, that I was not trying to troll anybody. I was trying to figure out a thumbnail, and I happened to see the picture of like Amber Rose and like Joseline locked up, and they were fighting. And I know that the video wasn't there, but I thought that folks would understand that why would I have the video? First and foremost, I wasn't there. Secondly, I'm pretty sure the students didn't have their phone because that is like an active set, even though that is your classroom and that is an active set. But like, I don't know why folks thought I would have the video. Like, oh, this thumbnail's there. He has video. And I thought it said reaction to Joseline Hernandez and Amber Rose. Folks were mad at me, Kai. They were coming for me. I
They
was
said you tricked me. They said you tricked me.
so,
I take my like back. Thank you. You up here tricking people, Randall.
and the funny thing about it is like when you look at that video, because a lot of folks has watched it, but like when you look at that video, some folks watched it through the end, but the average view time was 2 minutes.
They said, yeah, let's hang it up. I ain't seeing no fight. Let's hang it up. Hang it up.
They said clearly no fight is gonna be here. So the folks was like, I'm gone. But I talked about it last year and I reacted to it at the time. And my reaction was in the context of what was happening in the show. So the context of it was that Amber was sort of grappling with her racial identity and speaking about it in more specific terms throughout the season. There was a conversation that she had with Orion at the time where she talked about how it felt to be a mixed race child. I think growing up, I think she grew up in Philadelphia, and she spoke about it. If not Philadelphia, she grew up somewhere up north. And she essentially said that she was, not black enough to be black, but not white enough to be white. So it was sort of like this dichotomy of not knowing how to identify and what culture that she belonged to. And that was something that stuck out to me because, of course, we knew that the fight was coming because BT was promoting that. So when the fight happened, and we all gotta understand that Joseline was doing a lot that season because Joseline was going at Parker, locked her out of her room, and just was bullying Parker. And then you have the situation with Amber in the classroom. And Joseline was on her best behavior because one of the storylines for Joseline is that she had a conversation with the advisor and she was tripping. Amber talked to her, Parker talked to her, and they all had a come to Jesus moment. And they're like, hey, we're not going to beef. Let's make the best out of this. Let's make the best out of this experience. And Amber and Joseline sort of got cool. Like they were cool throughout that point heading into episode 6 from what we saw. So when that situation happened, like you said, and this was my takeaway from it, was that Joseline should not have done what she did, and Amber should not have hit her. Period. Because there is no place for that. If I sound nerdy, if I sound like the dad, I don't care. There is no place for that.
And school to fight.
Yeah, like, and then in college,
like I said, I'll buy 5. You get this scrapping, I'll buy 5. You don't put your money down the drain. You don't get that back.
Yeah, but for them, they don't, like we said with College Show Celebrity Edition with this season, a lot of them don't see it the way that we see it because in our orientations, they tell us about fighting that you'll go to judiciary and they won't have mercy with you. And then you're in this situation where at Alabama State, they're trying to protect their image. They allow College Hill to come and they're trying to protect their image. And you have these 2 grown women with children that are fighting, right? Yeah. So that whole entire thing was messy and was crazy. And that's why the fight wasn't put in the video.
Yeah.
But for me, last year, and I still feel this way, I look at Joseline like she should not have come at her like that. Because I understand that Amber could have handled that differently. And I think that Amber probably could have talked to Joseline behind the scenes or talked to Joseline after class. And they could have filmed it, her sort of talking about her experience. And that could have been a great storyline moment in the show. And maybe Joseline would have been receptive because Joseline sort of calmed down and she realized she wasn't on Love and Hip Hop. She wasn't on Zeus Network. Like she sort of realized that, hey, I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to be contentious. But Joseline provoked that. And then Joseline goes on a PR tour and she's talking about defying this person that she beat up. Joseline provoked that, and that's something that was wrong. And I defended Amber in that context last year, and I still stand on it because that never should have happened. Because there's a such thing, and this might be a colloquial term, might not be a real thing, but I think in logic it's a real thing, the butterfly effect. If one thing doesn't happen, another thing don't happen. So if Joseline just sat there and got her assignment and had been quiet, okay, Amber Rose was still went up there at the Republican National Convention repping Trump, but the fight wouldn't happen. Okay, so I'm just saying they would have graduated, and just maybe she would have got enough of that HBCU experience where she would have been up there. But I guess we'll never know.
But you know what's crazy though? Some of the people that supported Trump went to the HBCU, so we can't even say that.
Yeah,
we can't say that. But I will say, in Joseline's defense, like I said, she was wrong for provoking her because she just kept on going and going and going. It's one thing to say something and then just like let it go, but she just kept going and going. So she was definitely wrong in that sense. But like I said, what she said wasn't really wrong, but how she said it was wrong. Because as a mixed part, as like I said, I have tons of mixed friends, and they basically say the same thing as same thing Amber was saying, but they all recognize, because most of my friends are black mixed with some other race, that people still see them as a black person. So whether it's me or someone else, they are still viewed as black people despite them being mixed with whatever else. So she was definitely wrong in how she said it and then provoking Amber. But in a sense, she wasn't wrong at the fact that if I were to look at her, I would see a black woman. Because when I was first introduced to Amber Rose, I just thought she was a lesbian black woman. Until like I got older and really started seeing her in other spaces, and she was like, "No, I'm mixed race." I'm like, "Okay, well, she's mixed." But even with her saying that she's mixed, she's still a black woman to me. She's like, because she looks like a black woman because she's partly black. But I just feel like for Joseline, how she said it and how she went about trying to prove her point was definitely wrong because it incited Amber to want to get violent with her. So that's where she was wrong. But like I said, what she there was some truth to what she was saying. Is that because when she's like, "You're a black girl to me," that's kind of true. Because if someone, because the thing is, Trump is doing the same thing. They view her as a black woman to appeal to black voters. He doesn't care if your dad is white. What he sees when he look at you is a black woman, and you are popular in black culture, so you're going to help us lead to the black vote. At the end of the day,
My only thing with it, with the reaction now, is that, and I want to say that I wasn't really, Amber wasn't even my favorite cast member. It was Parker. Parker was my favorite, but I defended Amber in that instance as far as like from that moment because I think Joseline. It's hard to say she was more wrong because Amber got up and hit her, but I
yeah,
think that Joseline, if she removed herself from that situation or Joseline didn't provoke her in that way, I think that the outcome would have been different. And I think that Joseline was wrong for pushing her in that way. And I think that, and this is I guess a therapy term in a way, I think that what Amber did was sort of a fight or flight moment because she talked about how she
yeah,
used to fight over these different things when she was younger. And we all have our inner child and our inner trauma that we've internalized. So that's clearly something that she struggles with. And you have like Joseline Hernandez saying, "Who's gonna check me?" Which that was totally uncalled for. And then
yeah.
and then Amber's like, "I'm
You
checking
can't
you," and then I'm checking you
can't
right
be a
right now.
villain.
So
Yeah,
like that whole entire situation was uncalled for. I do not really support what Amber is doing. I wonder her motives because I think you're totally correct that she has not cited policy and they have not allowed her to talk about policy and they've sort of used her. I got to say it as a prop when it comes
She's
to
a prop.
her
She's a prop.
proximity, like you said, her proximity to blackness, and also the fact that she has been a part of hip hop culture, been a part of black culture. But
Exactly.
my thing is this: when it comes to the overall conversation of it, if Joseline is right, I don't like the framing of it because to me, I don't know if I can say that she was right because that's Amber's experience. And I'm only talking about her experience as a biracial woman. I'm not talking about her political her political side because I am a Democrat, and if you follow me on Twitter, you will know that. But I'm talking about the biracial side of it. I just still don't believe that we can say that Joseline was right for saying what she said because that's Amber's experience, and Amber has the agency. And I said this last year to feel the way that she feels and identify the way she identifies, and to go at her in the way that Joseline did in a public environment, which I still don't really understand why Joseline was so upset. And I don't think we ever will get that because even in interviews, she didn't really explain it. Like she didn't really explain, at least interviews I've seen, like why she was so upset. But I just believe that for me, like the conversation of was Joseline right relative to her speaking at the Republican National Convention, those are two separate things. I think that Joseline was not right. I think that that is a misframing of the conversation. But I do believe that Amber Rose is being used and she doesn't care because what I will say, and I'm not going to put out any misinformation because there's a lot of things being said on social media, and I don't want to put anything out there. But I think that there are other motives because people have a fealty to power. So for her going up there and saying, hey, this and that, Trump's not racist, she's being used to paint a picture in that setting to say, well, hey, I'm half black and Donald Trump ain't racist. I'm here, I'm home. These are my people. You're using that to try to appeal to the quote unquote undecided black voter. And that's really my thing, where it's like she's allowing herself to be used. She has agency over her own actions in the same way politically, but now, but she's doing. I feel like she's doing this for a reason because to me, if we're talking about policy, there ain't one policy that for me, for what I've seen, and if she talks about a policy that she likes, good for her, claps for her. But for what she was talking about with the slut walk and with abortion rights and all these different things, autonomy, all this different stuff, like I really believe that she's not doing it because she identifies with Trump and the Republicans on policy. She's doing it, I don't think, for attention. I think that she's bowing to power for some reason.
Yeah, she might be. And I think we also have to understand that we live in a country where we are so diverse that when you hear the term mixed person or you hear the term biracial, you automatically assume that someone has a black and a white parent. But being mixed race, you can be mixed with a whole bunch of, like, if someone was white and Asian, they are mixed, they are biracial. So it's not just a word that is specifically for people who are mixed with black. So I think, and I honestly feel like with Amber and Jocelyn, we see two different things because Jocelyn is Afro Latina. So she has one black parent. If I'm not mistaken, I think she has one black parent and then one fully Hispanic parent. She's still mixed. She's still biracial. Whereas Amber has one black parent and one white parent. And there's this common theme amongst when we talk about mixed race people, specifically mixed people who have one black and one white parent, that we can tell who has what type of parent based on their actions. So I feel like like with Jocelyn, because she is also a mixed person, and she even said it because people try to say she's not Hispanic. She is a Hispanic woman. Like she's Hispanic. So I feel like she understands that point of saying when people's like, oh well, you're not Hispanic, you're black. But I think more so is that Jocelyn, the difference between Jocelyn and Amber is that she accepts the fact that she, regardless, is a black woman through and through. So it's like, and as far as Amber's concerned, there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I'm not fully black. I'm mixed race," because that's what she is. She's not lying. Like she's mixed. Her father's white, and if she has a good relationship with her father, she would never want to do anything to make him feel like, oh well, she's ashamed of him or anything. So that's completely up to her discretion. But it's just always really interesting to me to see how different biracial people, different people would, like, regardless how they interact, because I have friends who are mixed with black and white, and I also have friends who are mixed with black and Hispanic. Like my best friend, she's black and Hispanic, and seeing how she's very into her Hispanic culture, but she considers herself a black woman. Majority of her friend group is black, so she is really in black spaces and everything like that. But she never like turns her back on her Hispanic culture. But we see sometimes with mixed race people who are black and white that sometimes they gravitate towards more to one side versus the other. And I've seen it all my life throughout school. Like I had this one friend, she was mixed, she was black and white, but she really leaned more into her Caucasian side, the way she dressed, the way she talked, the type of friends she had. And that's okay because that's what she chooses to do. That's it's all about choice. It's a personal choice on how you choose to identify yourself. But it's just amazing to see, like, with mixed people, how they're different depending on what you're mixed with. Because, like I said, Jocelyn's technically mixed. She's black and Hispanic versus Amber, who's black and white. But you see how different they are, and you see how they feel about their blackness, and they both have different experiences. They're the same, but they're different. Like the game is the same, but the players are the same. Like Jocelyn, people tell she's not really Hispanic or she's not Hispanic enough. While Amber, people are telling she's not black or she's not white enough. But you see how their experience yield two different results and how they feel about their identity. And maybe because Jocelyn grew up in Puerto Rico, it was like a different situation versus growing up in America where we have this long history of issues between black and white people. So that honestly plays a part into what happens now. But for me, just like really just looking at the clip and just like, hearing your point of view, it's just amazing to see that we have two mixed people sitting in our faces and how how they feel about their identities are so different.
But I even say this. I mean, there were three because if you
Oh
look
yeah, and
at it,
Parker.
you have Parker, and I think that has to be the delineation. And I'll say this, then we'll move on to the episode about College World Season 3, Episode 6. But when you look at the delineation of agency, right? Parker, and this is episode 7. I think Parker more so talked about this episode 7 in the aftermath. Parker is also a mixed race woman, but she moves differently. She acts differently. I can't tell you how she actually identifies politically, but I think that it possibly is different from Amber. And I would say it's different, even we not knowing if she's a a Biden supporter or a Trump supporter. Like even within that, Parker is not effusive in her political views where she's like, hey, I'm a Democrat. That's not her. Hey, I'm a Republican. That's not her. But Amber decided, hey, it might be in my best interest to go to the Republican National Convention and do this. So even within them both being mixed race, they have sort of different divergent views and they have different ways that they go about doing their business. And that's why I felt as if even now that I can't say in the discussion that I know we're at the tail end of because she spoke on Monday and it's Friday as we're doing this episode. But I just believe that the conversation is flawed because of that, because what we're talking about, even when it comes to cultural identity, like that's on that person to tell their story. Now, if we're talking about loyalty to culture, I think that becomes a very interesting discussion. And I think that's sort of the intersection of where we're walking of a
Yeah,
loyalty to culture. Because if Amber is identifying as a black woman and you have black women that are going through this issue that is directly correlated with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and you're identifying with the man that appointed 3 Supreme Court justices that
exactly.
helped in the overturning of Roe v. Wade, that loyalty to culture and loyalty to community. Now that becomes a different conversation where we can go off on Amber Rose. But when it
Yeah.
comes to the topic of biracial identity and people trying to blend, hey BET, show the fight. You see what she's doing? That's a different conversation because the fight. And here's the thing people gotta understand: the fight was not about her being a Republican. The fight was about her feeling a way about Jocelyn and what Jocelyn said to her and how she felt internally about her struggle with sort of self-identity in that way that as we saw in the season that she has dealt with. So that's why I look at it as two different things. I understand people being upset, and they might want to see the fight because let Joseline tell her. Joseline just drug her. It was a squash match in WB terms.
Went on some other stuff, so she might have got one or two in. But you honestly made a great point about culture and loyalty, and I think what many people's issue is with Amber, and honestly, not only with Amber, but honestly, other people, and even some white people, because I know we've had this conversation about Miley Cyrus and Post Malone, is that they will use black culture and black people to get to a certain point, and when they're done using black people and black culture, they drop them. So I think with Amber, aside from her being a mixed black woman, it's the fact that, like I said, we all know Amber because of her being adjacent to black culture and black people. So it's like you spent years in these black spaces. You've built a following from being in these black spaces, and now you are supporting someone that could possibly lead to the destruction of said black spaces. Because yeah, you were on College Hill, College Hill Celebrity Edition out of HBCU, and I know everyone isn't super political, but there's something going around, and we all know what it is that could lead to them getting rid of the Department of Education. And you know what's going to be the first thing to go? Set HBCU where they had that fight at. So it's like I feel like for Black people specifically, and I can't speak for all Black people. This is just what I think, that the reason why people are coming at her so hard and saying, yeah, Jocelyn was right, and it's really two different things, like you said, but because she has made a name for herself through black culture and with black people, and now you are attaching to yourself to someone who could put an end to that in all different types of scenarios, it's really disheartening.
Yeah, and I'll say that what you said about just the removal of the Department of Education is so key, because I think that, because when we talk about how HBCUs can be affected, we know that federal financial aid and the Department of Education, Pell Grants, that really helps Black students. But something that I am afraid of, and I want to make sure I say this correctly because I want to keep this in, okay, is I wonder that federal designation of HBCU, because HBCU is a federal designation, right? For institutions that were created before 1964 with the specific purpose of serving Black people, from in the Higher Education Act of 1965, signed by Lyndon Baines Johnson, had a lot of amazing stuff in there that still is relevant to this day when it comes to higher education. I just wonder if that designation then comes into question. That's the thing. So if we're talking about a Trump presidency, and I'm not trying to fearmonger as he's fearmongering, he's a Democratic chill, whatever. That's something that I honestly worry about, because we see a lot of these issues legislated in the Supreme Court, in high courts, and these different things, and we sort of see the attack on scholarships. We sort of see the attack on fellowships and all these different things. So when it is not a political win to say, oh, historic record funding for HBCUs in the Trump administration, what then happens when someone says, oh, well, I didn't get in to an HBCU because I'm not Black. We should test that designation. There shouldn't be HBCUs because there's no need for it anymore. And that's already been an argument. But what if that is tested on the level, on a court level, and then we have someone that possibly could appoint 2 more Supreme Court justices? But let me get off my soapbox. Let me say this one last thing. I will say this, that Amber Rose did not do herself any services when Joseline was saying that she wants to be a white girl when she dressed up as Eminem for Halloween. I don't want to just say that.
Sometimes, honestly, not gonna lie, like people like, oh, the jokes write themselves, girl. I know who she was.
She was Eminem. Yeah, she was Eminem.
Oh, that's what she was supposed to be.
Okay. Yeah. Because I remember they explained what their costume was, and she was like 2002 Slim Shady Eminem. That's why she had on the outfit with the hat and all that. Okay. And she thought she was Slim Shady. How she got up.
Okay, I might have been in the bathroom for that. I thought, like that one video, Whitney Houston, Bobby around when they like that. That's what I thought she was. I thought she was trying to be Bobby or Whitney. I thought it was giving that. So she was Eminem. Okay, got you. Yeah. Got you. Okay, because I was really confused. Because I was just like, why is she dressed like a PE teacher?
A PE teacher.
Like, it's Halloween, girl. Like, spice it up a little bit.
Yeah,
Because, like, Joseline had her little clown on. The New York, was a school world. You know what I'm saying? And then, I don't know, Orion was some sea moss, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what she was giving. She was giving gym teacher. I had a gym teacher who just like that with a little flip cap to the back. She looks like my gym teacher from the 7th grade. Like, and I hope that lady's doing well. But I was just confused. But thank you for educating me. She was Eminem. You said 2002?
I would say early 2000s at the very least. Maybe
okay, so this isn't the one that Mariah Carey wrote about and obsessed. This early Eminem. Okay.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to hbcupulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.